The coffee shop buzzed with the usual morning rush when Marine Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison walked through the glass doors. His eyes automatically swept the room, a habit drilled into him through 12 years of active duty and 3 deployments overseas. The familiar weight of his service weapon pressed against his hip beneath his civilian jacket, even though he was technically off duty. Jake had chosen this particular coffee shop for a reason. It sat 2 blocks from the Marine Corps recruiting station where he worked, but far enough away that he could grab his morning caffeine without running into fellow Marines or potential recruits. Sometimes a man needed 5 minutes of peace before diving into another day of interviews and paperwork. He ordered his usual black coffee and found a corner table with a clear view of both entrances. Old habits died hard, especially when those habits had kept him alive through firefights in Fallujah and mountain passes in Afghanistan. The morning newspaper lay folded beside his cup, but Jake found himself watching the other customers instead of reading. A young woman sat 3 tables away, laptop open, fingers dancing across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. She wore a simple gray sweater and jeans, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Nothing about her appearance suggested military service, yet something about her posture caught Jake's attention. She sat straight, alert, with her back to the wall and a clear line of sight to the door. Coincidence, Jake muttered under his breath, returning to his coffee. 20 minutes later, as Jake prepared to leave for work, his phone buzzed with an urgent message from his commanding officer. A high-priority situation had developed overnight. 3 Marines had gone missing during what should have been a routine training exercise at Camp Pendleton. The message was brief but clear. All leave was canceled, and Jake needed to report to base immediately for emergency briefing. Jake drained his coffee cup and stood, his mind already shifting into operational mode. Missing Marines meant search and rescue protocols, coordination with local law enforcement, and potentially calling in specialized units. He'd been through similar situations before, though thankfully they usually ended with embarrassed Marines nursing hangovers in civilian jail cells rather than anything more serious. As he moved toward the door, Jake's phone rang. The caller ID showed his old unit commander from Afghanistan, Colonel Sarah Martinez. Jake frowned. Martinez now worked at Pentagon Intelligence, and she didn't make social calls. "Morrison," he answered, stepping outside into the cool morning air. "Jake, I need you to listen carefully." Martinez's voice was tight with urgency. "Those 3 missing Marines from Pendleton? This isn't a standard AWOL situation. Intelligence suggests they may have been taken." Jake stopped walking. "Taken? By who?" "We're not sure yet, but there's evidence of foreign surveillance teams operating in the area. NSA intercepted some chatter about acquiring American military personnel for intelligence purposes. I'm sending you coordinates for a secure meeting location. Come alone, and Jake, watch your back." The line went dead. Jake stared at his phone, his morning routine suddenly forgotten. Foreign surveillance teams didn't operate on American soil without significant backing and resources. If hostile agents were actively kidnapping Marines, this situation was far more serious than a simple missing persons case. Jake's phone buzzed with a text message containing GPS coordinates for a location in downtown San Diego. He recognized the area as an industrial district near the waterfront, the kind of place where private conversations could happen without interruption. Martinez was being cautious, which meant the threat was real. 30 minutes later, Jake parked his pickup truck in front of a seemingly abandoned warehouse. The building looked like it had been empty for years, but Jake noticed subtle signs of recent activity. Fresh tire tracks in the gravel, footprints in the dust near the entrance, and most telling of all, a small electronic device mounted discreetly near the doorframe. Someone was monitoring this location. Jake approached the warehouse entrance, his hand instinctively checking the position of his sidearm. The heavy metal door opened before he could knock, revealing a familiar face. Gunnery Sergeant Tom Peterson had served under Martinez in Afghanistan and now worked with some kind of classified intelligence unit. Peterson looked tired, like he'd been awake all night. "Good to see you, Morrison," Peterson said, stepping aside to let Jake enter. "The colonel's waiting inside." The warehouse interior had been converted into a temporary command center. Computer equipment lined folding tables, maps covered the walls, and several people in civilian clothes worked quietly at various stations. Jake recognized the setup from Joint Operations Overseas. This was a forward intelligence post, the kind of facility used for time-sensitive operations requiring immediate analysis and coordination. Colonel Martinez stood near a large map of Southern California, marking locations with colored pins. She looked up as Jake approached, and he could see the stress lines around her eyes. Martinez had always been tough, but something about this situation was pushing her to the edge. "Jake, thank you for coming," she said, offering a brief handshake. "What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels." 3 Marines disappeared during night training exercises at Pendleton. Their unit thought they'd simply gotten lost or injured. Standard search and rescue protocol. But satellite imagery shows they were intercepted by an unknown team and transported off base. Martinez pointed to several locations on the map. NSA intercepted communications, suggesting these Marines are being held somewhere in the San Diego area, probably for interrogation. The kidnappers want information about current deployment schedules, base security procedures, anything that could compromise operational security. Jake studied the map, noting the marked locations. "Do we know who's behind this?" "Intelligence points to a foreign cell, possibly Chinese or Russian operatives working with local assets. They've been planning this for months, studying Marine training patterns, identifying vulnerable opportunities. This wasn't random." Peterson joined the conversation, carrying a tablet loaded with surveillance photos. "We've identified several suspects, but they're professionals. No criminal records, established cover identities, the works. They knew exactly how to stay invisible until they made their move." Jake examined the photos. The faces meant nothing to him, but their body language and positioning in the surveillance images suggested military or intelligence training. These weren't amateur criminals looking for quick money. They were professionals executing a carefully planned operation. "What's my role in this?" Jake asked. Martinez exchanged a look with Peterson before answering. "We need someone with your background to help with the rescue operation. Your experience in urban combat and hostage situations makes you ideal for this mission. Plus, you know the missing Marines personally from recruitment interviews. They trust you." Jake nodded. He'd interviewed all 3 Marines during their enlistment process 2 years ago. Good kids from working-class families, the kind of young Americans who joined the Marines to serve their country and build better lives. The thought of them being tortured for information made Jake's jaw clench. "When do we move?" he asked. "Soon," Martinez replied. "But first we need more intelligence on the enemy positions. That's where things get complicated. We have reason to believe the kidnappers are using advanced communication codes, possibly military-grade encryption. Breaking their communications is essential for planning the rescue." Peterson activated a laptop and pulled up several audio files. "NSA recorded these transmissions over the past 24 hours. The speakers are using some kind of numerical code system, very sophisticated. Our best analysts can't crack it." Jake listened to the recordings. The voices were calm, professional, speaking in short phrases punctuated by series of numbers. It sounded like military communications, but the code structure was unlike anything Jake had encountered during his service. "Any idea what kind of code system they're using?" Jake asked. Martinez shook her head. "That's the problem. This code appears to be based on classified American military protocols, but modified somehow. Someone with deep knowledge of our communication systems designed this. It's not something foreign agents could develop independently." The implications hit Jake immediately. An inside source had provided the kidnappers with classified information about American military communications. Someone with high-level security clearance was working with the enemy, possibly someone still active in the military or intelligence community. "We're dealing with a traitor," Jake said. "That's our assessment," Martinez confirmed, "which is why this operation is being run outside normal channels. We don't know who we can trust within the regular command structure. This team represents our best hope of recovering the Marines and identifying the source of the security breach." Peterson closed the laptop and faced Jake. "We're going to put together a small extraction team, people we know and trust completely. Your job would be to help plan the assault and provide tactical leadership during the rescue operation." "Are you in?" Jake didn't hesitate. "Absolutely." Martinez smiled grimly. "Good. We'll be working around the clock until we find those Marines. Get some rest and report back here at 1800 hours for detailed mission planning." "And Jake? Don't discuss this with anyone, including your current command. As far as they know, you're helping with a routine investigation." Jake understood the security implications. If there was a traitor in the military command structure, any communication through normal channels could compromise the mission and endanger the kidnapped Marines. This operation would succeed or fail based on their ability to maintain absolute secrecy. As Jake prepared to leave the warehouse, Peterson pulled him aside. "There's one more thing you should know," he said quietly. "The NSA intercepted something else in those communications. The kidnappers mentioned a timeline. They're planning to move the Marines to a different location within 48 hours, probably to transport them overseas." Jake felt cold dread in his stomach. Once the Marines left American soil, their chances of rescue would drop dramatically. Foreign intelligence services were experts at making people disappear permanently. The window for successful rescue was closing rapidly. 48 hours, Jake repeated. "Maybe less," Peterson confirmed. "That's why we need to crack their communication code immediately. Without understanding their coordination signals, we're operating blind." Jake nodded and headed for the door. As he walked back to his truck, his mind was already working on the tactical problems ahead. Hostage rescue operations were among the most dangerous and complex military missions. Success required perfect timing, overwhelming force, and detailed intelligence about enemy positions and capabilities. The drive back to his apartment gave Jake time to process the morning's revelations. 3 Marines kidnapped by foreign agents, a traitor within the American military, and less than 48 hours to mount a rescue operation. He'd faced difficult missions before, but this one felt different. The stakes were higher, the enemy more sophisticated, and the margin for error essentially zero. Jake's apartment was a modest one-bedroom place near the base, furnished with military precision and sparse personal belongings. He'd lived there for 2 years, ever since his assignment to the recruiting station, but it had never felt like home. Home was wherever Marines were in harm's way, and right now that meant wherever 3 kidnapped Americans were being held captive. He spent the afternoon reviewing his personal equipment and mentally preparing for the mission ahead. His civilian job required suits and paperwork, but Jake maintained a full set of tactical gear for reserve training exercises: body armor, night vision equipment, communication devices, and weapons. Everything a Marine needed to bring fellow Marines home safely. At 1700 hours, Jake's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. The message contained only a series of numbers, 742918836. Jake stared at the digits, wondering if they represented some kind of code or if someone had sent the message by mistake. He was about to delete the message when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Colonel Martinez. "Jake, we may have a breakthrough," Martinez said without preamble. "Our analysts noticed something about the enemy communication patterns. They're using a variation of a code system developed for Special Operations Forces about 5 years ago. Very classified, very restricted. Only certain units had access to the protocols." "Which units?" Jake asked. "That's what we're trying to determine." But Jake, here's the thing. If we're right about this code system, then whoever is helping the kidnappers had to have served in one of those units. We're talking about someone with the highest level of security clearance and specialized training. Jake felt the pieces of the puzzle beginning to form a pattern, though the complete picture remained unclear. A sophisticated kidnapping operation, classified military codes, and a traitor with special operations background. The enemy they were facing was far more dangerous than simple foreign agents. "I'll see you at the briefing," Jake said. As he prepared to leave for the warehouse, Jake's phone buzzed again with another text message from the same unknown number. This message was longer. Only Special Ops use that code. Jake stared at the message, his pulse quickening. Someone was watching. Someone who knew about the investigation and the classified code systems being analyzed. But was this person trying to help or gathering intelligence for the enemy? He decided not to report the messages to Martinez until he learned more. If there was a traitor within the intelligence community, any communication could be compromised. Jake would handle this personally, using the instincts and training that had kept him alive through multiple combat deployments. The sun was setting as Jake drove back to the warehouse, casting long shadows across the industrial landscape. In a few hours, he would be part of a team attempting one of the most dangerous missions possible, rescuing American servicemen from professional kidnappers while hunting a traitor who knew their every move. Jake checked his sidearm one more time before entering the warehouse. Tonight would determine whether 3 young Marines lived or died, and whether a security breach that threatened American military operations could be contained. The stakes couldn't be higher, and failure wasn't an option. The mission was about to begin. The warehouse command center buzzed with controlled urgency when Jake arrived for the evening briefing. Additional personnel had joined the team throughout the day, all carefully vetted individuals with specialized skills. Jake recognized several faces from his deployments overseas, Marines and other service members who'd earned reputations for handling impossible missions. Colonel Martinez stood before a wall-mounted display showing satellite imagery of potential target locations throughout San Diego County. Red circles marked buildings where the kidnapped Marines might be held, while yellow markers indicated known safe houses used by foreign intelligence operatives in the past. "Gather around," Martinez called as Jake joined the group. "We've made significant progress since this morning. NSA analysis has identified the communication code being used by the kidnappers. It's a modified version of the Sinai Protocol, developed for Joint Special Operations Command 5 years ago. Jake had heard of Sinai, though he'd never been cleared to use it personally. The Synchronized Intelligence Network Authentication Interface was designed for the military's most sensitive operations, allowing secure communication between units operating in hostile territory. Access to Sinai required multiple security clearances and specialized training. Peterson activated a laptop and displayed communication intercepts from the past several hours. The good news is that understanding their code system gives us insight into their operational structure. We've identified at least 6 distinct voices, suggesting a team of professional operatives with military-style organization and discipline. The bad news, Martinez continued, is that their use of Sinai confirms our worst fears about the security breach. Whoever is feeding information to these kidnappers has access to some of the most classified protocols in the American military. We're not just hunting foreign agents anymore. We're hunting one of our own. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Military personnel took betrayal personally, especially when it endangered fellow service members. Finding the traitor had become as important as rescuing the kidnapped Marines. Jake raised his hand. "Colonel, I may have additional information about the enemy communications. I've been receiving text messages from an unknown number, messages that seem to reference the classified codes we're discussing." Martinez's expression hardened. "What kind of messages?" Jake retrieved his phone and showed the texts to Martinez and Peterson. Both men studied the numbers and cryptic phrase about special operations codes. "This could be a breakthrough," Peterson said. "Someone is trying to communicate with you directly, possibly someone with inside information about the kidnapping operation." "Or it's a trap," Martinez added grimly. "The kidnappers might be trying to identify our investigation team by sending test messages to see who responds. Either way, we need to trace the source of these communications immediately." Martinez handed Jake's phone to a technician who began connecting it to analysis equipment. Within minutes, they had preliminary results on the message origin. "The texts are being routed through multiple proxy servers. Typical counter-surveillance techniques," the technician reported. "But I'm detecting something unusual. The routing pattern suggests someone with advanced knowledge of NSA communication protocols. Whoever sent these messages knows how to hide from the most sophisticated surveillance systems in the world." Jake felt a chill of recognition. The careful routing, the cryptic references to classified codes, the professional approach to maintaining operational security. These weren't the actions of a random informant or amateur criminal. Someone with serious intelligence training was trying to make contact. "Colonel," Jake said, "I think someone is trying to help us. The timing of these messages correlates with breakthroughs in our investigation. It's like someone on the inside is guiding us toward the truth." Before Martinez could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. Technicians rushed to their stations as urgent communications flooded in from multiple sources. Peterson answered his encrypted phone and spoke in rapid, clipped sentences before ending the call with visible tension. "We have a problem," Peterson announced. "Local law enforcement just discovered a body in Balboa Park. Marine uniform, but preliminary identification suggests it's not one of our missing personnel. Someone is trying to send us a message." Martinez immediately began issuing orders. "I want a full forensic team at that location within 30 minutes. Peterson, coordinate with local police, but keep our investigation compartmentalized. Jake, you're with me. We need to examine this scene personally." The drive to Balboa Park took 15 minutes through evening traffic. Jake sat in the passenger seat of Martinez's unmarked sedan, watching the city lights blur past while his mind processed the evening's developments. The discovery of a body wearing Marine uniform suggested the kidnappers were escalating their psychological warfare, trying to pressure the rescue team into making hasty decisions. Balboa Park after dark was a different world from the daytime attraction visited by tourists and families. Police barriers cordoned off a section near the cultural center where crime scene technicians worked under portable lighting systems. The body had been discovered by evening joggers who'd noticed the distinctive military uniform and called authorities. Martinez showed her identification to the detective in charge and was granted access to the crime scene. Jake followed, noting the professional manner in which the body had been positioned. This wasn't a random dumping site. The kidnappers had chosen this location for maximum psychological impact. The victim appears to be in his 30s. Marine dress uniform, but no identification, the detective briefed them. Medical examiner's preliminary assessment suggests he's been dead for several hours, probably killed elsewhere and transported here for discovery. Jake examined the body without disturbing the crime scene. Something about the victim's appearance nagged at his memory, a sense of familiarity that he couldn't quite place. The man was clearly military, with the bearing and physical conditioning of an active-duty Marine, but Jake was certain he'd never met this person before. "Colonel," Jake said quietly, "this isn't random intimidation. Look at how he's positioned, the condition of the uniform, the location selection. Whoever did this wanted us to find him quickly and draw specific conclusions." Martinez nodded. "The question is, what conclusions we're supposed to draw. Is this a warning about what will happen to the kidnapped Marines? Or is someone trying to provide us with information disguised as a threat?" Jake's phone buzzed with another text message. This one was longer and more detailed. "Warehouse District, Building 47, 2 hours. Come alone, or Marines die." Martinez read the message over Jake's shoulder, her expression grim. It's a trap. They're trying to isolate you from the team, probably to eliminate someone they see as a threat to their operation. Maybe, Jake replied, but what if it's genuine? What if someone with inside information is trying to arrange a meeting to provide intelligence we need for the rescue? Peterson arrived at the crime scene and was quickly briefed on the latest developments. He studied Jake's phone and the location referenced in the text message. Building 47 in the warehouse district is about 2 miles from our command center, Peterson said. It's been vacant for months. Perfect location for a clandestine meeting or an ambush. If Jake goes to this meeting, he'll be completely exposed. Martinez paced beside the crime scene tape, weighing options. We can't ignore a potential intelligence source, but we can't afford to lose team members to enemy action. Jake, what's your assessment of the risk versus potential benefit? Jake considered the question carefully. His instincts told him the messages were coming from someone trying to help, but 12 years of military service had taught him to be suspicious of convenient solutions to complex problems. The enemy had already demonstrated sophisticated planning and access to classified information. This could easily be an elaborate trap. I think the risk is manageable if we take proper precautions, Jake said finally. Position surveillance teams around the building, maintain communication protocols, establish backup plans for extraction if things go wrong. But we need intelligence about the kidnapped Marines, and traditional investigation methods aren't producing results fast enough. Martinez made her decision. We'll do it, but with full tactical support. Peterson, coordinate surveillance teams and quick reaction forces. I want snipers positioned with clear lines of sight, electronic surveillance on all approaches, and extraction teams ready to respond within seconds if needed. The next hour was spent in intensive preparation. Jake would attend the meeting wearing concealed body armor and communication devices, while hidden surveillance teams monitored every approach to the warehouse building. If this was an ambush, the kidnappers would find themselves facing overwhelming military response. At 20:30 hours, Jake drove alone toward the warehouse district. His truck's radio maintained constant contact with the surveillance teams, while GPS tracking allowed real-time monitoring of his location. Every precaution had been taken, but Jake still felt the familiar pre-combat tension that preceded dangerous missions. The warehouse district was largely deserted after business hours, with only occasional security patrols and late-shift workers visible. Building 47 stood in a row of similar structures, dark and apparently empty. Jake parked across the street and studied the building for signs of activity before approaching. Overwatch 1, this is Morrison, Jake spoke into his concealed microphone. Approaching the target building, no visible movement or security measures. Copy, Morrison. We have you visual. Multiple surveillance assets in position. You are clear to proceed. Jake crossed the street and approached Building 47. The main entrance was secured with a chain and padlock, but he noticed a side door that appeared to be slightly ajar. Following his training, Jake approached carefully, weapon ready, senses alert for any sign of threat or ambush. The interior of the building was dark, except for dim light filtering through high windows. Jake activated a small tactical flashlight and swept the area, noting empty shipping containers, abandoned office furniture, and the general detritus of a facility that had been vacant for months. "Anyone here?" Jake called out, his voice echoing in the empty space. A figure stepped from behind a shipping container 20 feet away. Jake's flashlight beam revealed a woman in dark clothing, hands visible and empty, posture non-threatening. Jake recognized her immediately as the woman from the coffee shop that morning, though she now wore tactical clothing and moved with obvious military precision. "Staff Sergeant Morrison," she said, her voice calm and professional. "Thank you for coming. We need to talk about the kidnapped Marines." Jake kept his weapon ready but didn't aim it directly at her. "Who are you? How do you know my name and rank?" The woman stepped closer, moving into better light. Jake could see that she was older than he'd initially thought, probably early 30s, with the bearing and confidence of someone accustomed to command authority. Her clothing was civilian, but high-quality tactical gear, the kind used by special operations personnel. "My name is Sarah Chen," she said. "Major Sarah Chen, formerly of Delta Force, currently working for a classified intelligence unit that doesn't officially exist. I've been tracking the kidnapping operation for 3 months, and I need your help to prevent a disaster that goes far beyond 3 missing Marines." Jake's mind raced. Delta Force was among the most elite special operations units in the American military, with access to the highest levels of classified information and training. If Chen was who she claimed to be, she would have knowledge and capabilities that could be crucial to the rescue mission. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Jake asked. Chen reached slowly into her jacket and withdrew a military identification card, which she tossed to Jake. The ID appeared genuine, with proper holographic security features and official seals. According to the card, Major Sarah Chen was cleared for access to special compartmented information, the highest level of military security classification. "The Sinai Code protocols your team identified today," Chen continued. "I helped develop those systems during my time with Joint Special Operations Command. The kidnappers aren't just using our codes, they're using them perfectly, which means their inside source has complete access to current operational procedures." Jake studied the identification card while maintaining visual contact with Chen. Everything appeared legitimate, but he'd seen sophisticated forgeries before. Enemy intelligence services were capable of producing convincing false documents. "If you're really military intelligence," Jake said, "why aren't you working with Colonel Martinez and the official investigation team?" Chen's expression darkened. "Because the traitor we're hunting is someone on that official team, someone with access to all your communications, all your planning, all your operational intelligence. Every move your team makes is being reported directly to the kidnappers." The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. If Chen was right, then the rescue mission was compromised before it began. The kidnappers would know about every tactical plan, every surveillance operation, every attempt to locate the missing Marines. They were walking into a trap designed by someone they trusted completely. "That's impossible," Jake said. "Martinez handpicked every person on the team. They're all proven veterans with unblemished service records." "Service records can be falsified," Chen replied. "Loyalties can be bought or coerced. The enemy we're facing has unlimited resources and years of planning behind this operation. They identified key personnel in the American military and spent months developing strategies to compromise them." Jake's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Peterson. Chen held up her hand, signaling Jake not to answer. "Don't take that call," she said urgently. "Peterson has been feeding information to the kidnappers since the beginning. He's the inside source that's been compromising your investigation." Jake stared at Chen in shock. Peterson had been his friend and colleague for years, a decorated Marine with an exemplary record and a reputation for absolute integrity. The idea that Peterson was a traitor seemed impossible. "You're lying," Jake said. Chen activated a small electronic device and played an audio recording. Jake recognized Peterson's voice immediately, speaking in the same numerical code patterns they'd been analyzing all day. But in this recording, Peterson was clearly coordinating with the kidnappers, providing information about the investigation team's progress and planned operations. "This was recorded 6 hours ago," Chen explained. "Peterson has been using secure communication protocols to stay in contact with the kidnapping team. He knows about this meeting, Jake. Right now, he's coordinating an ambush designed to eliminate both of us." Jake's world tilted as the betrayal sank in. Peterson wasn't just a traitor. He was actively working to ensure the kidnapped Marines were never found, and that anyone who got close to the truth would be eliminated. The entire rescue mission had been compromised from the moment it began. "Why should I believe you?" Jake demanded. "Because in about 30 seconds, your surveillance teams are going to come under attack from professional shooters who know exactly where they're positioned," Chen said. Peterson provided the enemy with detailed information about your tactical deployment. Your backup is about to be neutralized." As if summoned by her words, Jake's radio erupted with urgent communications from the surveillance teams. Gunfire echoed through the warehouse district as hidden snipers engaged the Marine observation posts. Shouts, explosions, and the distinctive crack of high-powered rifles filled the night air. "Overwatch 1 is taking fire," came the desperate radio call. "Multiple shooters, professional coordination. We need immediate backup." Chen grabbed Jake's arm. "We need to move now. The building is surrounded, and they're closing in on our position. There's a service tunnel in the basement that leads to the adjacent building. It's our only way out." Jake followed Chen toward a stairway leading to the building's lower level, his mind reeling from the rapid sequence of revelations. Peterson was a traitor, the rescue mission was compromised, and the woman he'd noticed in a coffee shop that morning was apparently a highly classified intelligence operative working to uncover a conspiracy that reached deep into the American military. The basement was dark and cluttered with mechanical equipment from the building's operational days. Chen moved confidently through the maze of pipes and machinery, clearly familiar with the layout. She led Jake to what appeared to be a maintenance access panel, which she quickly opened to reveal a tunnel large enough for a person to crawl through. "This connects to the building next door," Chen explained. "From there, we can reach a vehicle I have positioned for emergency extraction. But Jake, once we leave here, you can't return to your unit or communicate with anyone on Martinez's team. Peterson will be monitoring all official channels, and he'll try to eliminate us if he gets another opportunity." Jake hesitated at the tunnel entrance. Abandoning the official rescue mission meant 3 Marines would remain in enemy hands, possibly forever. But staying meant walking into a trap designed by someone who knew all their plans and capabilities. "What about the kidnapped Marines?" Jake asked. "I know where they're being held," Chen said. "But rescuing them will require a completely different approach, one that bypasses all official channels and relies on resources Peterson doesn't know about. Are you willing to go off the grid to save those Marines?" Gunfire continued echoing through the night air above them, punctuated by radio calls reporting casualties among the surveillance teams. Peterson's betrayal had turned what should have been a simple intelligence meeting into a coordinated ambush against American military personnel. Jake made his decision. "Lead the way." They crawled through the service tunnel, emerging in the basement of an adjacent building. Chen led Jake up to ground level and out to an alley where a black SUV waited with its engine running. She motioned for Jake to get in the passenger seat while she took the driver's position. "Where are we going?" Jake asked, as they drove away from the warehouse district. "Somewhere safe where we can plan the real rescue mission," Chen replied, "and where I can show you the full scope of what we're dealing with." "The 3 kidnapped Marines are just the beginning, Jake. This conspiracy involves foreign intelligence services, military contractors, and government officials at the highest levels. We're not just rescuing Marines anymore. We're trying to prevent a security breach that could compromise American military operations worldwide." As they drove through the dark streets of San Diego, Jake realized his quiet morning at the coffee shop had been the beginning of the most dangerous mission of his military career. The enemy wasn't just foreign agents anymore. They were fighting a network of traitors within their own government, people with access to the most classified information and the most sophisticated resources. But they also had Major Sarah Chen, a special operations veteran with knowledge and capabilities that might be their only hope of success. The next phase of the mission was about to begin, and everything Jake thought he knew about the situation was about to change completely. The safe house was a modest ranch home in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of place that would never attract attention from neighbors or law enforcement. Chen parked the SUV in the attached garage and led Jake through a door that opened into what appeared to be a normal family home. But Jake quickly noticed subtle modifications that suggested the house's true purpose. Windows had been reinforced with ballistic glass, Door frames showed signs of steel reinforcement, and discrete security cameras monitored all approaches. This wasn't just a safe house. It was a fully operational intelligence facility disguised as suburban normalcy. "Welcome to my headquarters," Chen said, leading Jake into a basement that had been converted into a high-tech command center. Multiple computer screens displayed satellite imagery, communication intercepts, and surveillance footage from locations throughout San Diego. "I've been operating from here for 3 months, tracking the network responsible for kidnapping your Marines." Jake studied the information displays with growing amazement. Chen's operation was far more sophisticated than the official military investigation. With access to intelligence sources and surveillance capabilities that seemed to exceed government resources. "How is this possible?" Jake asked. "Even Delta Force doesn't have this kind of independent operational capability." Chen activated a secure computer terminal and began accessing classified databases. "Because I don't work for Delta Force anymore. Officially, I died in a helicopter crash in Syria 18 months ago. Unofficially, I was recruited by a classified program that operates outside normal military command structures. We call ourselves the Sentinel Network." The computer screen displayed Chen's official military records, including a death certificate and burial details. According to official documents, Major Sarah Chen had been killed in action during a classified mission. Her body recovered and buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. "The Sentinel Network was created to handle situations exactly like this one," Chen continued. "When foreign intelligence services penetrate American military security, when traitors operate at the highest levels of government, when normal law enforcement and military procedures are insufficient to protect national security, we have authorization to use any means necessary to eliminate threats to American military personnel." Jake felt a chill of recognition. He'd heard rumors about such organizations during his deployments overseas, whispered stories of American operatives who appeared and disappeared like ghosts, handling missions too sensitive for normal military or intelligence agencies. Most personnel dismissed such stories as fantasy, but Jake had always suspected some truth lay behind the rumors. "So you've been tracking this kidnapping network for months," Jake said. "What did you discover?" Chen activated a wall-mounted display showing a complex network diagram with photographs, names, and connection lines linking dozens of individuals. At the center of the network was Peterson's photograph, connected to foreign intelligence operatives, defense contractors, and government officials. "Peterson isn't just a traitor," Chen explained. "He's the operational leader of a cell that's been selling classified American military information for over 2 years. The kidnapping of your 3 Marines was designed to obtain specific intelligence about current deployment schedules and base security procedures. That information will be used to plan attacks against American military facilities worldwide." Jake studied the network diagram, noting familiar names and faces among the conspirators. Several were high-ranking military officers, others were civilians with security clearances, and some appeared to be foreign nationals with diplomatic cover. "This goes all the way to the Pentagon," Jake said in amazement. "Higher than that," Chen replied grimly. "We've identified connections to congressional staff members and defense industry executives. This isn't just espionage, Jake. It's a systematic effort to compromise American military capabilities at the strategic level." Chen activated another display showing real-time surveillance footage from an industrial complex near the Mexican border. Jake could see armed guards patrolling the perimeter, sophisticated security systems, and what appeared to be a command center with communication equipment. "The 3 kidnapped Marines are being held here," Chen said. "It's a private military contractor facility, officially used for training exercises, but actually serving as a base of operations for Peterson's network. The Marines are being interrogated using advanced psychological techniques designed to extract maximum intelligence while keeping them alive and functional." Jake studied the surveillance footage, noting the professional security arrangements and military-grade equipment. Rescuing the Marines from such a facility would require careful planning and overwhelming force. "How do we get them out?" Jake asked. Chen smiled for the first time since they'd met. "With a plan that uses Peterson's own communication systems against him. He's been monitoring official military channels, but he doesn't know about the Sentinel network or our capabilities. We're going to feed him false information while conducting the real rescue operation." Chen activated a secure communications system and began contacting members of her network. Within minutes, Jake was listening to conversations with operatives positioned throughout Southern California, all reporting ready status for immediate deployment. "I have 6 Sentinel operators standing by," Chen explained. "All former Special Operations personnel, all officially dead according to military records, all equipped with the best weapons and technology available. We also have technical support from NSA assets who aren't part of the compromised investigation." Jake watched in fascination as Chen coordinated what amounted to a private military operation using resources that seemed to exceed those available to regular government agencies. Her team included former Navy SEALs, Delta Force operators, and intelligence specialists, all working outside official channels to accomplish missions too sensitive for normal procedures. "What's my role in this operation?" Jake asked. "You're going to help us save the Marines and expose Peterson's network," Chen replied. "But first, we need to set a trap that will bring all the conspirators into the open. Peterson thinks you were killed in tonight's ambush along with me. We're going to let him continue believing that while we gather evidence of his treasonous activities." Chen activated a sophisticated computer program that began generating fake communications traffic designed to simulate normal military investigation procedures. The program created realistic but false reports about the rescue team being eliminated and the investigation being suspended due to casualties. "Peterson will intercept these communications and report to his handlers that the threat to their operation has been neutralized," Chen explained. "That will give us 12 to 18 hours to plan and execute the rescue before they realize we're still active." Jake watched the fake intelligence being transmitted through official military channels, amazed by the sophistication of Chen's deception operation. Every detail was perfect, from communication protocols to transmission timing, creating a completely convincing false narrative about the investigation's status. "How do you have access to official military communication systems?" Jake asked. "The Sentinel network has assets throughout the government and military," Chen replied. "People in key positions who provide support for operations like this one. We couldn't function without loyal Americans who understand that sometimes protecting the country requires working outside normal rules and procedures." Chen's phone rang with an urgent call from one of her surveillance teams. She answered on speaker so Jake could hear the conversation. "This is Guardian 6, the caller reported. "Target location shows increased activity. Multiple vehicles arriving, personnel conducting equipment checks. Signs of preparation for major movement. Estimate they're planning to transfer the prisoners within 6 hours." Chen cursed under her breath. "They're moving faster than expected. Peterson must have orders to eliminate the Marines if the investigation gets too close to the truth." Jake felt cold dread in his stomach. Military interrogators were trained to extract information quickly when time was limited, using methods that often left subjects permanently damaged or dead. If the conspirators were preparing to move the Marines, it probably meant they'd obtained whatever intelligence they wanted. "We need to move tonight," Jake said. Chen nodded grimly. "Agreed. But this changes our tactical approach. Instead of a careful infiltration, we'll need to conduct a direct assault before they can transport the prisoners. It's going to be dangerous, with high probability of casualties." Chen began issuing orders to her team through secure communication channels. Jake listened as she coordinated helicopter support, weapons delivery, technical surveillance, and medical backup. The operation was taking shape with military precision and professional competence. "Jake, I need you to understand something, Chen said as she finished coordinating the assault plan. Once we begin this operation, there's no going back to your normal life. Peterson's network will identify you as a threat, and they'll try to eliminate you permanently. Are you prepared for that level of commitment? Jake thought about the 3 young Marines being tortured by traitors, about Peterson's betrayal of everything the military stood for, about foreign intelligence services using American personnel to compromise national security. The choice was clear. Those Marines trusted the Corps to bring them home safely, Jake said. I'm not abandoning them now. Chen smiled and handed Jake a tactical vest loaded with specialized equipment. Then let's go get our people back. The assault team assembled at a helicopter landing zone 20 miles from the target facility. Jake was amazed by the quality of personnel and equipment Chen had assembled. Her operators moved with the confidence and precision of elite special operations forces, their weapons and communication gear representing the newest military technology. Chen briefed the team using satellite imagery and intelligence reports, updated in real time. We have 3 American Marines held in the central building, probably in the basement interrogation facility. Primary opposition includes 12 to 15 security personnel with military training and automatic weapons. Secondary opposition may include Peterson and other members of his network who are coordinating the operation. The helicopter insertion went smoothly, with the assault team fast roping into position 300 yards from the target facility. Jake moved with Chen's operators as they approached the perimeter, noting their professional coordination and tactical discipline. These weren't just former military personnel. They were among the best operators the American military had ever produced. The facility's security systems proved no match for the Sentinel network's technical capabilities. Electronic locks were bypassed, surveillance cameras were neutralized, and communication systems were jammed within minutes of the team's arrival. Jake watched in amazement as Chen's operators methodically dismantled sophisticated security measures using equipment he'd never seen before. Perimeter secured, came the radio report. No casualties, no alarms triggered. Ready for facility infiltration. Chen led Jake and 2 other operators toward the main building, while the remaining team members established overwatch positions. The structure was larger than it had appeared in surveillance photos, with multiple levels and extensive basement areas. Finding the Marines quickly would require systematic searching and possible engagement with defending forces. They encountered the first resistance on the ground floor, where 2 security guards were positioned at a control station monitoring internal surveillance cameras. Chen's operators neutralized both men silently, using non-lethal techniques that left them unconscious but alive. Basement level, East Corridor, Chen whispered, studying the facility blueprints on her tactical computer. Intelligence indicates that's where they conduct interrogations. The basement was a maze of corridors and rooms, some obviously designed for legitimate training purposes, others clearly intended for activities that wouldn't survive official scrutiny. Jake heard voices echoing from one of the distant rooms, angry shouting punctuated by what sounded like physical violence. Chen motioned for the team to advance toward the sounds. They moved carefully through the corridor, weapons ready, communication maintained through hand signals and whispered radio transmissions. Jake could hear his heart pounding as they approached what was obviously an active interrogation session. The door was steel reinforced with multiple locks, but Chen's technical specialist bypassed the security systems within seconds. Through the opening, Jake could see a scene that made his blood boil with rage. The 3 kidnapped Marines were secured to chairs in the center of the room, showing obvious signs of prolonged physical and psychological abuse. 2 interrogators worked on the youngest Marine, a 19-year-old from Ohio whom Jake remembered interviewing during the recruitment process 2 years ago. The kid had joined the Marines to honor his grandfather's memory and build a better future for his family. Peterson stood near the back of the room, monitoring the interrogation while speaking into a secure radio. Jake could hear him providing updates to someone about the intelligence being extracted from the prisoners. "Now," Chen whispered. The assault team moved through the door with overwhelming speed and precision. The interrogators were neutralized within seconds, while Peterson found himself facing Jake's weapon before he could react or call for help. "Hello, Tom," Jake said, his voice cold with controlled fury. "Surprised to see me alive?" Peterson's face went white as he recognized Jake. "This is impossible. You were killed in the warehouse district. My team confirmed multiple casualties." "Your team confirmed what we wanted them to confirm," Chen said, stepping into Peterson's view. "Major Sarah Chen, Sentinel Network. You're under arrest for treason, espionage, and conspiracy against the United States." While Chen's operators secured Peterson and the remaining facility personnel, Jake moved to check on the kidnapped Marines. All three were conscious and responsive, though they showed signs of serious abuse and psychological trauma. The youngest Marine looked up at Jake with recognition and relief. "Staff Sergeant Morrison?" the young Marine whispered. "How did you find us?" "The Corps never leaves Marines behind," Jake replied, beginning to cut the restraints that secured the prisoners. "You're safe now. We're taking you home." Chen's team worked efficiently to secure the facility and gather intelligence about Peterson's network. Computer systems were accessed and copied, communication records were downloaded, and physical evidence was collected for later analysis. The facility contained information about dozens of ongoing espionage operations targeting American military installations worldwide. "Jake, you need to see this," Chen called from a computer terminal where she'd been analyzing Peterson's communications. "He was planning to eliminate the Marines tonight and transport their bodies to Mexico for disposal. We arrived just in time." Jake looked at the communication log showing Peterson's coordination with foreign intelligence operatives. The three Marines had been scheduled for execution within 2 hours, their deaths designed to look like they'd been killed trying to escape from their captors. "How long has this been going on?" Jake asked. Chen studied the computer files with growing alarm. "According to these records, Peterson's network has been operating for over 3 years. They've sold information that compromised American operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and other locations worldwide. Dozens of American personnel have been killed or wounded because of intelligence provided by these traitors." The magnitude of Peterson's betrayal was staggering. He hadn't just endangered 3 Marines. He'd systematically compromised American military operations for years, resulting in countless casualties and strategic failures. Peterson was secured with zip-tie restraints and placed under guard while Chen's team prepared for extraction. The facility had been neutralized, the Marines were safe, and massive amounts of intelligence had been gathered about the espionage network. "What happens to Peterson?" Jake asked. "He'll be turned over to military intelligence for debriefing and prosecution," Chen replied, "along with evidence that will expose his entire network. This operation will result in arrests and prosecutions at the highest levels of government and military." The helicopter extraction went smoothly, with the rescued Marines receiving immediate medical attention during the flight to a secure military hospital. Jake sat beside the youngest Marine, the kid from Ohio who'd joined to honor his grandfather's memory and build a better future. "Thank you, Staff Sergeant," the young Marine said as medical personnel checked his injuries. "I thought we were going to die in that place." "Marines don't give up on Marines," Jake replied. "No matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, we bring our people home." Dawn was breaking over San Diego as the helicopter touched down at the secure military facility where the rescued Marines would receive medical care and debriefing. Jake watched as the 3 young Americans were transferred to medical personnel, alive and safe, despite Peterson's betrayal and foreign enemies' attempts to break them. Chen approached Jake as they walked away from the landing zone. "Your part in this mission is officially over," she said. "Peterson's network has been exposed, the Marines are safe, and justice will be served. You can return to your normal duties with the recruiting station." Jake stopped walking and faced Chen. "What about you? What happens to the Sentinel network now?" Chen smiled enigmatically. "We continue doing what we've always done. Protecting American military personnel and national security when normal procedures aren't sufficient. There are other threats, other missions, other Americans who need protection from enemies, foreign and domestic." Jake understood that he was being offered a choice. He could return to his quiet life processing recruitment applications and giving presentations about military careers, or he could join Chen's shadowy organization and dedicate himself to missions that officially didn't exist. "Are you recruiting me?" Jake asked. "I'm offering you an opportunity to serve your country in ways most people never imagine," Chen replied. "The Sentinel Network is always looking for people with your skills and dedication. People who understand that sometimes protecting America requires working outside normal rules and procedures." Jake thought about the past 24 hours, the betrayal by Peterson, the sophisticated enemy network that had penetrated American security at the highest levels, and the 3 young Marines who would be alive only because dedicated Americans had been willing to take extraordinary risks. "What would my first mission be?" Jake asked. Chen's smile widened. "We've identified a defense contractor in Virginia that's been selling classified weapons technology to Chinese intelligence. The operation involves several Pentagon officials and a sitting congressman. Standard law enforcement procedures would take years and probably fail due to political interference." Jake looked back at the hospital where the rescued Marines were receiving care, then at Chen, who represented opportunities for service he'd never imagined possible. "When do we start?" Jake asked. 3 months later, Jake sat in the same coffee shop where he'd first noticed Sarah Chen, reading a newspaper article about the military court-martial of former gunnery sergeant Tom Peterson. Peterson had been sentenced to life imprisonment for treason, espionage, and conspiracy. His network of co-conspirators faced similar sentences, while the intelligence gathered from his operations had prevented dozens of planned attacks against American military facilities. The 3 rescued Marines had recovered from their ordeal and returned to active duty, their experience serving as a reminder that the American military never abandons its personnel. The youngest Marine, the kid from Ohio, had been promoted and was now serving as a recruiter himself, helping other young Americans find opportunities to serve their country. Jake's phone buzzed with a text message from Chen, who was now operating under a different identity in a different city. The message contained only GPS coordinates and a time-standard procedure for their next mission briefing. Jake finished his coffee and stood to leave, noting a young woman at a corner table who sat with her back to the wall and maintained visual contact with both entrances. She wore civilian clothes and appeared to be reading a novel, but Jake recognized the subtle signs of military training and operational awareness. As Jake walked past her table toward the exit, the woman looked up and spoke quietly. "Only special ops use that code," she said, referencing a phrase Jake now knew had multiple meanings within the intelligence community. Jake stopped and looked at her carefully. She was probably mid-20s, with the bearing and confidence of someone accustomed to dangerous situations. Her book was positioned to conceal a small electronic device, and her clothing showed the subtle bulges that indicated concealed weapons. Until she answered with the precise response, Jake replied, completing the recognition phrase that identified him as a Sentinel Network operative. The woman smiled and closed her book. "Captain Lisa Rodriguez, formerly Air Force Special Operations, currently tracking a network of arms dealers operating out of Los Angeles. I understand you might be available for temporary assignment." Jake sat down across from Rodriguez, his quiet morning routine once again interrupted by the demands of protecting American interests from enemies who operated in shadows and used betrayal as a weapon. "Tell me about the mission," Jake said. As Rodriguez began briefing him on the latest threat to American security, Jake reflected on how much his life had changed since that morning 3 months ago when he'd first noticed Sarah Chen in this same coffee shop. He was no longer just a Marine recruiting sergeant processing paperwork and giving presentations to high school students. He was a guardian, a sentinel standing watch against enemies who sought to harm American military personnel and compromise national security. The work was dangerous, the missions were classified, and the victories would never be publicly acknowledged. But every night Jake went to sleep knowing that American service members were safer because people like him were willing to work in the shadows, to sacrifice normal lives, and to confront betrayal wherever it threatened the security of the United States. The conversation with Rodriguez continued as they planned another mission to protect America from those who would sell out their country for money, ideology, or coercion. Somewhere in the world, American military personnel were depending on people like Jake to keep them safe from enemies they would never see coming. Jake would not let them down. The mission continued, and America's guardians remained vigilant in the shadows, protecting those who served in the light.